Welcome to the Community Collective Podcast, a flip-flop agent production in collaboration with the Davison Area Chamber of Commerce. I am your host, Johnny B. Good. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Community Collective Podcast. I am Johnny B. Good, the flip-flop agent, and your host for the Community Collective Podcast. I am joined today with the infamous, and I love to say it because he's so well liked around the community, but I call him the infamous Travis Howell, the executive director for the Davison Area Chamber of Commerce. Travis, how are you doing today, my friend?
Good. Thank you, man. I'll hang out with you more often. You give me such good compliments. I like this.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me, Johnny. This is great. And today we have a guest I'm really excited to talk about because they are just as involved in our community as the chamber is, as so many other wonderful people. So today we have Megan from Ireland's Dream joining us. Hey, Megan.
Hey there, how are ya?
Good. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
We always start off the podcast with a nice, easy question, and I'm excited to learn more about this myself. What is your background? What did you do? What did you study? Where do you work?
Okay, do you want the long story or the short story?
You know, whatever is the most interesting and exciting one.
Um, I'm a physician, and it's interesting actually. I told my mother when I was about 2 that I was going to become a physician, which is it's really rare, I think, for a child to tell their parent when they're 2 that they're going to become something and then they actually do it. So I'm one of those kind of oddities, but I grew up about 35 minutes east of Davison in a really small town called Memphis, Michigan. And I graduated with only 54 kids. So it was a really tiny little farming community. And when I was young, my dad passed away. He was killed in a car accident. And so I actually grew up in a single parent household with a mom as my role model. And so it was because of that, I think that I'm a lot of what I am today, because she was a lot. She had 2 kids to take care of, and she did. And she never dropped the ball. She took us to sports and clubs, everything. She expected a lot out of us. And in return, my appreciation was that I think became a pretty decent person. So after I graduated from high school, I went on to undergrad, and I have a bachelor's degree in science, medical laboratory science from Oakland University. And then I went on to right away, no breathing in between. I went right on to medical school, and I went to medical school in Kirksville, Missouri at the founding osteopathic school, which is Kirksville College of Osteopathic Medicine. When I was in college, I met my husband. He and I had a lot of science classes together, and he and I have been married for almost 23 years. It'll be 23 years in June, and together for 25. And he's a huge part of, I think, who I am too. He's the rock in my life, really. And I then went on after medical school. I did my residency in Grand Blanc, and that's how we ended up in this area. My husband had set up he's a chiropractor, and he had set up his chiropractic practice in Grand Blanc while I was in residency. And when I got out, I thought, shoot, I really don't want to make the man move what he's worked these years
Yeah.
on. That's mean, even though I'd like to go to Arizona. And so I thought, well, let's stay around here. And so we did live in Grand Blanc for a few years, but I grew up in this little farming community, cows and tractors, and Grand Blanc just wasn't quite right. And my husband's actually from Sandusky, Michigan, up in the thumb. We both grew up in small farming communities. So we started looking for a new house, and it's funny because we were just sitting there, and one night he was looking and he said, "What about Davison?" And I said, "I heard they have a good football team. That's all I know." And he said, "Okay, let's go look at this house." And so we did. And that's how we ended up in Davison, because we came out here. We actually went to a football game because he had a patient who played on the football team. And we went to a football game, and this is much better, like closer to what what I want to have for my children. And my husband agreed. And yeah, so we moved here. We've lived here for My goodness, it will be 20 years, almost 20 years that we've lived here. I think it's 19 this coming summer. And we have 4 children. Our oldest is 15 and our youngest is 6. And we also, our second is going to be 13 on Sunday. And then Ireland, who we'll end up talking about today, is going to be 11 in April. Yeah.
Wow. Megan, that is amazing. I completely agree with how important family is. I know Johnny will too. We have kids. For me, I moved to Michigan and because I fell in love with my wife. So I
Yeah.
definitely know the value of being with someone that makes it worth where you want to start that family and that commitment. And also, I love that you had a goal when you were young and you're like, I'm going to do this. And you just stuck with it. And with that encouragement and probably the support of your mom, I think
Oh,
that
yeah.
probably that's amazing. That's a story right there. And I think as we go talk some more today, I think that really shows what your passion is and what you're doing right now is based on your life experiences and how important family is to you, which is, I love it. I love family. I love our community just like you do. So that leads us into a great question. Now, what is your inspiration for Ireland's Dream?
So, my husband and I, 2 sons who were just completely run of the mill, normal births, and everything went fine with all of the pregnancy and the delivery. And then, because we always joke in the medical, it's not funny but true. In the medical world, if something crazy is going to happen, it's going to happen to one of us, so nurses, doctors. And so when I was pregnant with Ireland, the first issue I had was that she was breech. So that was problem number one. And I kept telling my husband, I'm like, oh no, gosh darn it, this is already an issue in and of itself because I'm worried what breech brings with it all kinds of issues. And then when she was delivered, we ended up having a lot of complications. The cord was delivered prior to her, basically, is what happened. And her head came down on it and cut off oxygen to her. And it turned into huge emergency. She actually passed. She was resuscitated by an amazing group of people. Sorry, it's hard for me to
Oh,
talk about
Megan,
this
you
without
are
getting
you
a
are
little
fine.
teary.
This,
Without getting a little teary. An amazing group at Sparrow Hospital in Lansing delivered her, and they did an amazing job. She did pass away, and then she was resuscitated, and she ended up being on the vent for about a week, but a fighter the whole way. She kept breathing over the vent. She kept chewing on her tube. She was just like, get me out of here. This is ridiculous. But we knew from what had happened to her that there was probably going to be issues. And we started her in therapy right away. She actually ended up needing a feeding tube because she didn't suck properly. So everything that I'm talking about is in reference to my third child, our first daughter. And she was such a fighter. I remember, so I was obviously, they had done an emergency C-section and I was in recovery, probably still completely out of it. And they whisked by the waiting room and my husband was sitting there and they said, you need to come meet her and say hello to her because she's not going to live. And so my husband was just in just complete shock. What do you mean she's not going to live? And that was just, everything about it was just completely traumatic and horrible. But the fact that right from the beginning, she's fighting, she's, like I said, breathing over the vent, chewing on her tube, just doing everything, just being crazy. I was like, you know what, this kid's awesome. She's awesome. And this is all going to work out. And
she's like she's just ready to feel the love of her family and get with you guys and just
yes,
have that. I get that's so important and it
yeah.
shows you right there. Yeah.
Yeah, she does fighting spirit. She's just a fighting spirit. And so we we ran her. I actually kept the calendar just to look. I found it a couple weeks ago, this calendar that I had of her the first 6 months. It was literally every day was just appointment. It was just crazy. But what I realized in all of this, running this child around, and then the days turned into weeks, turned into months, turned into years, that everything they do for kids who have cerebral palsy, which is cerebral palsy is brain damage, just pure and simple. Cerebral palsy is brain damage. Cerebral palsy is brain damaged in a brain damaged child. They either have brain damage prior to birth, so in utero, during birth, which is what happened to Ireland, or sometimes right after birth, especially if they're really premature, they'll have a stroke and that will cause brain damage. That's what causes cerebral palsy is brain damage. And it was just the running around and the doing all these things and realizing that they're just placating. This is not anything that's going to get this child anywhere better than sitting in a corner in a wheelchair. And so my husband and I started doing research and started looking up all the possibilities that we could go through and what we could do instead of just this palliative ish care. And everything we found was there's 6 practitioners in the United States, or there's, oh, you can get this, but yeah, it's in Europe, or this is really great. It costs $8,000 for a week. And we were really lucky. We've had the support of our family, and they've helped us along the way with things. But the cost of all of this care, the impossibilities of getting to this care, the fact that already their parents, it's very difficult because a child with cerebral palsy is very much, there's so much expense, there's so many added things that people don't realize. For example, these children aren't able to necessarily go to school, like public school, so now you have to figure out where they're going to go, how they're going to get there, is there public transportation. It results in loss of pay because the parents can't go to a regular job. It's just, there's so many things. It's just, and it's really one thing after another. And so what my husband and I started talking about was, what if there was a place where these kids could come and they could stay for long periods of time? Because a lot of the care is long term. A lot of the care is it like hyperbaric oxygen. They need to go in it every day for a month. So this care isn't something that you can just do once a week. A lot of it really builds on itself. And so we started talking about, what if we build a place and these kids can get all the specialized care and they can stay for as long as they need to, and they can leave and go home. We'll teach parents how to do certain things that we're trying to work on. We'll work on getting them some of the equipment at home, and then they can come back every 6 months or whatever they need, whenever they can, to keep working on their care. And so we started talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. And I think I talked to the point where my husband couldn't take it anymore. And one day we were driving to work. We work together. We used to drive together, but the kids now, it's too complicated. But we were driving to work one day and it's okay. You don't have to talk about it anymore. He's like, I filed the paperwork and I started it.
Right.
So,
oh man,
congratulations. You're the executive director of Ireland's Dream. The paperwork will be in. I got it all filed and set. And I was just like, oh.
But what a wonderful surprise, and a heartfelt surprise too. It's, once again, the love of family is the best thing. And right there is an example of you guys working together. And that, I love that. That's wow. What, I can't even imagine. I don't know how I would respond myself. I'm kind of taken back. What a gesture that is.
It's funny. It's
yeah.
I look back at that morning still sometimes and I think, that one sentence out of your mouth turned into a lot of stuff. Yeah. So our inspiration is our daughter, Ireland, hence the name Ireland's Dream. And the inspiration is the need for children to get the help that they need so that they're not just put in the corner and patted on the head and, given some injections to make sure that their muscles and their legs aren't tightening too much.
Every life is important. Every child's important. This is an example of showing family members that might not have a hope or an idea what to do, that this is something that's possible. We're going to invest in the industry community and make a place for your family to continue to grow and be happy. That's amazing, Megan. That is, I'm just taken back by everything that you guys do in your mission, which kind of leads us into another great question. We have this inspiration, you have this excitement and this heartfelt story of your family's commitment. What are some of the things that you guys do with Ireland's Dream? What are future plans? What are some events that you guys do?
So Ireland's Dream, uh, we started in 2015. Our first event was in 2016, and it was a run. And it's adorable when I look back at it now because it was this tiny little run with 35 people. But you have to start somewhere, right? I didn't
Exactly.
know what I was
Yeah.
doing. I don't run. I've been to walks and runs, but it's not like I'm an avid runner. And we had this run, and that was really the start of our fundraising. We made $7,000. It was in Abernathy Park, and it was the beginning. And it's funny because the day that we had this run, it was an early morning registration. I believe the race started at 9, and it poured. I mean, down, it didn't sprinkle, it was a downpour. We had arches up for the finish, everything fell down,
Oh,
it was so ridiculous. It was funny looking back at it now. One of my friends said to me, she goes, you know what that is, right? And I'm like, what was that? That was God saying, are you sure you're ready for this? Are you sure you're ready for this? And I said, yeah, that's probably true, because that was literally just, oh my
it's
gosh. So we started doing fundraisers. That was our first. And then from there we added on, we have a gala every which is a nice big fancy event for people who like to get dressed up. We had it the first 2 years at the University of Michigan Flint, and we moved our venue for a few reasons. The U of M Flint had some different restrictions that made it difficult for us to have like donations and things brought in. So we moved it down to Clarkston to the Pine Knob Carriage House. And we have a golf outing. We added that on, I think, in 2018. And so now we have a plethora of fundraisers. We actually added on one this year. And we have in March, actually, I'll start from the beginning. This year we added on our polar plunge, which we call the Arctic Splash. We have that in February. This year was our first one, and it was fun. It was a really fun, different, all of our fundraisers are meant to bring in different kinds of people, because fundraisers that are aimed at the same groups don't give awareness to what we're doing to a broader spectrum of people, which is what we want. So the polar plunge was fun because it brought in a different group of people who had never participated in any of our activities before. That was at Lake Callis. In March, we have our St. Patty's Day party, which that'll be this time next Friday. I'll be freaking out because it'll be like literally not very long to the start of the registration for the race, because we added that on this year too. So we have a St. Patty's Day party that's at Sugarbush Golf Club here in Davis, but this year we added on a run prior to, it's called Shamrocks and Shenanigans. It's just prior to the party. So we have that, and it's fun because everybody will be running through the golf course, and we're really hoping that 44-degree day coming up this week does something about the pathway. And then in May, we have our gala, which is the formula event, which is fabulous. It's just a beautiful night. And then in June, we have our baseball tournament called the Shillelagh Bash. And that is up this year. Actually, we moved it because we needed a bigger field for our 15, 16-year-old teams. And that's up in Clio at the youth sports complex. And then September, it's usually in October. This year it's actually I'm sorry, I missed the golf outing. The golf outing is in August. That's also at Sugarbush Golf Course. And then in usually October this year, September 30th, we have our run, our Lucky Pumpkin run. And it starts in Lake Callis and goes through Abernathy and then comes back through Lake Callis. And then we have our Christmas tree silent auction. That is the Davison parade, the Christmas parade, the downtown one. And we have that at Academy de la Dance in downtown Davison. And we do a really fun Christmas tree auction where different community members and different organizations, businesses decorate trees, and then we auction them off. We had a really good time with that this past year. And
wow, it's just amazing how many events you guys are putting on, which
it's
that
a
I know
lot.
I've been able to enjoy a few of them, but there's so many more. It seems like I need to try to find a way to sign up for them.
Yeah, it's a lot. And we've added one ish a year. Last year we actually added two. This year we've added one. We have another idea of something that we might add. The biggest problem we run into is that you have to really expand your networking so that when you're going around and you're looking for participants and you're looking for sponsors and you're doing things like that, you're not asking the same people over and over again, because that's just awful. So we really have to, that's one of the big things that we're working is getting the word out so people know about us and know who we are. And also too, I didn't really mention, and it's the biggest part of this, we have our property here in Davison that we purchased back in August of 21. And it's a 18.9 acre property behind the McLaren building it's on Cal Drive, but it's off of Lippincott. So 15 in Lippincott, the northeast corner there behind the big McLaren building. So if you ever go back there, we have a great big sign on the property that says Future Home of Ireland Stream. And it's a pretty exciting thing for us to finally have. When we signed that paperwork, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is huge. Finally, we're
this is gonna happen. This is moving forward, right? Oh my
yay.
goodness.
And so that's awesome. And we've had architecture drawn up for a few years now too. So we have our architectural draw up. We have everything set in place. We just we have to secure enough funds to be able to break ground. And our plan this summer is to our plan this summer is to break ground on a corner of the field, which will be a convertible baseball field. So last year, on top of all of our fundraisers, we also it's a team called the CP Warriors, and we play up at the Clio Youth Sports Complex. They donated their T-ball field to us, and our kids come in their wheelchairs and their gait trainers and their leg braces. And I found different travel baseball teams to come in and play baseball against them. And so we have this team. And so our dream has been, and we also have the Shillelagh's baseball team, who is our travel boys baseball team, and they play in the name of Ireland Stream. They play with our logo, and they're out there. They're a travel team, and they're fantastic, but they're also awesome because they're bringing awareness to us.
Megan, with everything that you do with your family, running kids around, stuff for Ireland Stream, when do you find time, or what do you do just to relax and zone out for even a few minutes a day? What type of stuff do you do?
To be very honest, I don't have free time. I really don't. There's always something, and I'm sure you understand, always something I could be doing. Even if I was just sitting here, I know in the back of my head, shoot, I really could be doing XYZ. So I think, like most of us, really busy, we just have to carve it out. You carve out a little bit of something just to take your brain away so that you're not always working. And some of the little things that I do, I really like to read. I've been an avid reader my whole life. I do really like to read. I found myself falling away from it the past several years with the children, and it really started to bother me a lot. So I've made sure recently that I always have a book next to the bed so that I can read before I go to sleep. In major free time, again, carved out free time, I actually really like to travel. That's honestly probably my very favorite thing to do. That's not just a small little thing. I really like to travel. My mom gave me that bug when I was younger, and I really like to travel. There's most of the world is so different than Davison, Michigan. So let's go experience it and then come back home when we've seen all that culture. So I've been to Europe probably, I think, 5 or 6 times, and we've been throughout a lot of the United States. I'm missing a few states, I think, still, but travel is great. Little things are reading, and I like to obviously do things with my children. We do game night, and we will go places together. We're actually taking Ireland to, it's really neat. It's one of those places where you get in the little tube and it feels like you're skydiving, and they blow the air up at you.
Oh my goodness. That sounds like so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The adaptive sport group does this, called Michigan Adaptive Sports. And so they're going to put 2 people in the tube with Ireland. So for her birthday, she can quote unquote skydive. And yeah, I'm so excited. They're going to video it for us. So I'll put it on our social media accounts so you guys can see
Oh
her.
my gosh. Just to see her experiencing that and you guys being right there. Oh, that is such an amazing thing. That type of travel sounds like the best.
Yeah, it's fun. She actually went ziplining over Niagara Falls.
Oh,
She
I'm
did.
jealous. Oh,
She did. That was in 2019. So she would have been 7. And we were standing in line, and the one of the employees came up to us and said, "Okay, let's get you all ready to get up and get in position." And I said, "Okay, but she's not gonna go." And he said, "Why?" And I said, She's in a wheelchair. She can't walk." And he said, "Oh no, we're here at this zip line at this company. We're for everybody." And I guess the company was actually started by a man who was in a wheelchair. And
oh,
so they
yeah.
did. They rigged her all up. They had cameras. They were looking at her from every angle, and they hooked her all up and they stuck her. And I'm standing there the whole time, and we had friends with us. And the wife looked at me and she said, Are you sure about this?" And I was like, "No." And my husband looked at me and said, "She doesn't get to do anything. She really doesn't get to do anything. She gets to do this." And I said, "Okay, fair. That's fair."
That's
And yeah, and
oh,
it was funny because they have, I think, 3 or 4 lines that go at the same time. And my husband and I were with her, and I did not enjoy it at all because the whole time I was scared about her. I really like ziplining. I think it's fun. And the whole time and it's so funny. She's so tiny that they flung her out. And this was so bad. And she's flying across Niagara Falls. And she's so tiny that she gets to the end, and there's a little mechanism on the line where it catches you, so it slows you down so you don't go like cascading off the end, right? And so
right.
the little mechanism catches her, and she just stops and starts just dangling there.
Oh, but what an experience right there. I think
It
that's
was awesome.
a perfect example of families doing stuff together, no matter what the situation is. And I think that's so important, not
Yeah.
only families here in Davidson, but everywhere, just to know that anything's possible, that's what I
Yeah.
love. I love seeing that and hearing those stories, and kids being kids, they get to experience everything together, which is
Yeah.
great. So,
It is fun that way.
and I get it. As a parent, I feel like sometimes in my free time, I might do a little bit of reading or just even zoning out watching TV. But sometimes it's just, I want to just hang out with my family
Right.
and just, I
Yes.
don't care what we're doing. It might just be watching a Disney movie, but
Right.
that family time is always so important. And that's
Yeah.
great. That's what I get when I think of Island Stream. I think of one big family
Mm.
doing stuff together and drawing in more people all the time to that family.
But that was one of the things that when I was growing up, we always ate and I try very hard with the kids, even with sports and everything we have going on, we try to eat together. That was always a big thing in our house, that we eat together, even if it means that I sat down 5 minutes, shoved my food in my mouth, put my uniform on and jumped in my car and went to the game. It was at least my mom tried to make sure we ate together. And that was always really good. I always appreciated that. And I've carried that on in my house.
Good. Megan, this is such a great conversation just with you. And I have, to be honest, just over probably the past couple months, really got a chance to know you more and talk to you more. But this was an opportunity to learn more about Iron and Stream, which I've never had a chance to do other than reading about it or being at an event. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me on here. I've enjoyed it.
As somebody that graduated from a somewhat small school, I do have one up on you there. I graduated with a blistering 24 people in my senior class. So, yes, we used to play Memphis very consistently in
Where
basketball and football.
where
So,
did you
I'm very
go?
I went to North Branch Wesleyan Academy.
Oh yeah, yep. I remember them.
Yep. So
That was
we were always fighting in that Class D division, the one that never
right.
got talked about anywhere.
Right.
So,
Right. Exactly.
so
Yes,
we definitely
exactly.
do have that in common. And I remember where your husband being from Sandusky, my grandma driving into a big irrigation ditch up there,
Oh,
coming back from a basketball game. So lots of good memories out there in the middle of nowhere.
that's right. Farm
Well,
country.
yeah, you better believe it. Megan, thank you again so much for taking the time today. I know that this is obviously so near and dear to your heart as a community affiliated with the chamber and any other organizations. We are so looking forward to how we can continue to help and contribute and help you guys realize your goal there on that property out there off Lippincott Road. We are so excited to see how things continue to move forward and the progress you make.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Travis, you still with us, buddy?
Oh yeah, sorry. I was just taking it. To be honest, I was just taking it all in and thinking, "Wow, this is such a just a great conversation and so much information." Just jotting down my notes as we chat. But Megan, it is. It's thank you so much for taking the time to share about your passion, about your commitment, and just the excitement that is surrounding Ireland Stream. And we are, as a chamber and as an individual, I'm excited to be a part of what you guys have going on and just seeing how it grows even more every year. So thank you
Thank
so much for
you.
joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Wow, that was such an amazing episode. I know that there are tons of us that are listening to this right now that have children, and to listen to all of the things that have happened in Megan and her family's lives, everything with Ireland and going through and being diagnosed with CP. It's amazing. And it's a little humbling and a little eye opening that I think as a parent, I definitely cannot take for granted the health and well being of my 4 children. We're one event away from being in those exact situations. And so I give a tremendous amount of credit to both Megan, her family, the people that have rallied around her at Ireland's Dream, the community for constantly engaging with the events and things that she's doing for fundraising. I think it's just absolutely amazing. I'm really excited to see the things that Ireland's Dream will continue to do in our community. And I am so appreciative of the time that she spent with us today. And I'm looking forward to having her on again soon because it seems like every 30, 60 days, she's got another event coming up. So we definitely want to keep you all in the know as well. So thank you for listening today. I am Johnny B. Good. This is the Community Collective Podcast. We'll see you on the next one.